there fish on it?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's a fish, all right. I thought it was a log.
I know.
Holy cow!
Holy macaroni!
Look what you caught that
I
time.
thought it was a log.
You thought it was a
It
rock?
was a
I
log.
thought it was a log.
Oh, that's a fine looking log you got there, buddy.
It was fighting so hard, I thought it was a log.
Well, how y'all doing, folks? It's PawPaw again. And I had a lot of people ask me for the specifics, for the specifications on our catfish noodles that we've been jug fishing with, catfish jugs, whatever you want to call them. And I had shown how to make these previously, but I don't think I really put out any exacting details. So I want to take just a few minutes to tell you how I make these. And if you watched my video where I took my grandson fishing, jug fishing with PawPaw, or jug fishing with PawPaw's grandson and David, that's what it was. If you watch that video, you'll see these things in action, and oh man. Well, these are my finalized, the epitome of my new, with the exception, I was thinking about putting a light on them, so when they stood up, they'd light up. I bought some little LED lights. I might still do that, but regardless, in my catfish noodle 1.0, I had taken some real 1/2-inch square tubing and filled it with lead and put that in them pipes. But that's a lot of weight, and the whole idea behind this, we want this to be buoyant. We want it to float. And we want it to float well. So you put too much weight in there, then when the fish pulls this, he don't have much resistance. I mean, when the fish hits this, we want that thing to pull up into his gum whenever he bites down and takes off. So let me give you the details. First of all, we use pool noodles. Now, those of you ain't never seen these, they're at, they're at all the little discount stores, all the department stores, all the sporting goods stores. They're everywhere. They're at Dollar Tree when they have them. Now, they're sold out for the year now, but I do want to point out to you now that these things come in 2 different size inside diameters. Some of them have a hole big enough for a 3/4 inch pipe, and some of them only have a hole big enough for an 1/2 inch pipe. Get off of me. See the difference there? So you want to buy your noodles first so that you can buy the appropriate pipe. Okay, let's just get into dimensions real quick. That's 2 feet of PVC, 24 inches of PVC pipe. Don't matter to me if it's 1/2 inch or 3/4, it's 2 feet long. And my pool noodle is 14 inches long, okay? 14 inches is about where I was able to max it out with getting the weight to make it still stand up. And the weight that I'm using is, I've got a lead pot over here, and I got an old sinker mold, and I was melting just some lead sinkers, and I find that 1 ounce of lead does a real good job. And for those of you that don't have the means of melting lead, buy egg sinkers and just put a total of 1 ounce of lead inside your Feel that? Okay. Now, to keep the lead from coming out, I use 832. That's size 8 little screws with 32 threads per inch. 832, that's what it's called. And on the larger of the two pipes, I'm using 1.5 inches, and on the smaller ones, I'm using 1.25 inches. That's a little bolt you see sticking through it right there, okay? Now, for the nuts, this is those that's got that little plastic insert in it. They call them a stop nut. But they got that, you don't have to have a washer or anything. You don't have to double nut it. They cost a little bit more, but dadgum, it sure is worth it. And what I like about it is you tighten down on it to the point of where you're starting to deform your plastic pipe, and then back it off a little bit. That way you know you got it as tight as it's going to go. Alright, so we got our 832 screws. We got plastic stop nuts, or what do they actually call them? They just call them stop nuts. Anyway, they're metal, they got the plastic inside of them. Now, I do want to tell you that when you go to cut your pool noodles, real simple, get out your fillet knife or any sharp knife, butcher knife, whatever, and you can slice through that thing like it ain't nothing. So, you don't have to use a skill saw or a chop saw or anything like that. Just a fishing knife will do just fine. For my string, I'm using this particular line I'm using. It's called Team Catfish. It's a number 12. It's a 100-pound test, and it comes 300 feet in a roll for $3. And a penny a foot, cheap enough. Now, I want to show you how I tie these. And the first thing I do is I used to smoke cigarettes. I always had a lighter where I could burn the ends, where it wouldn't fray. Now then, I just tie a knot in the end of it and go on with it. Or if I really want to do it, I could just set up a candle. And every time I cut this line, just put it on there. Or put it in the flame. But I want to show you the details of how I tie that green line onto the float. And the first thing I do is I just make a simple loop, just like that. That's all. Now, I want my string to be wrapped around that bolt in 2 different places. So what I do then is I'll take and I'll bring that through like that. I'll stick the bolt through, I tighten it up, and there we go. So we've got double string on the screw. Makes it hold better, I think. The length you run your lines up to you. This last time we ran it two outstretched arms. Then what I do is I tie that loop in that line, just like that right there. And then I reach over and I tie another one. So that when I cut this right here, I don't have to worry about it fraying. I've already got my knots tied in it, so the line's not going to fray on me. On mine, I'm using a steel leader. I have found that especially those big old catfish, they got that bony plate, that bony mouth. Shoot, they can seesaw like that. They get wrapped around the tree. They can just seesaw back and forth a little bit, and all of a sudden that bony plate shreds the line, and they're gone. 'Cause I've found several of them where they're wrapped around the tree limb and then gone. So I'm using a steel leader. I do the same thing on the leader end that I do on the float end as far as tying my knot, because I want double string in there. Now on some of these, I was actually fortunate enough to catch these leaders with the hook already in them, already made up. I caught these at Ollie's. And there's no, people say, well, you got to have a snap swivel and all this stuff. And I'm like, why? Why do you need a swivel? This is not going to be stationary. If the line starts to twist, this is floating. It'll twist. If you throw it out and the bait twirls the line a little bit, it's going to untwirl. It ain't going. There's no need to waste your money on swivels. Now, some of these cheap leaders already have swivels on them, but that's fine. You just get whatever you can, but put a steel leader on there. Nylon coated steel leader, whatever. By Jove, I think I've got it. Okay, so my design is such that when you bait up your hook, put your bait in the water, especially if you're working by yourself. Just lay that bait in the water, and then hold your float like this to where the weight is up here, and lay it in the water just like that. And it'll stay flat the whole time until a fish pulls down on it, and boom. Now, there's not always a fish on it, but it sure does let you know one bit on it. I do not trim, I don't worry about trimming this bolt off flush, because I use it. I bring that string, when I'm winding it up, I bring that string up here and I put it underneath that bolt. And now then, my string is held up here to where when I wind it, it ain't gonna try to slide back down. So, that's how you make these fishing jugs, catfish jug, whatever you want to call them. And I do recommend that you go ahead and spend a few pennies it costs to do it upright. You know, use the bolts, use the line, use the leaders, because if you do it right, you never have to replace these, except maybe if you don't keep these stored out of the sunlight. These will weather and break down in the sunshine. But what time you use them fishing, they're going to last a long time. Folks, I know I was rambling, but I hope that answered your question. At the end of the video here, I'll put a list of the exact measurements and all the details on all this. God, I'm just rambling like, I'm rambling worse than Joe Biden. God, y'all have a wonderful day and a better tomorrow. Let's go fishing. Bye, everybody.
I just want a single fish out of all of this.
How much you know?
That, yeah. Yep.
Got him?
You got one?
Bring him on in here.
Woo!
Look at there, you done got a catfish.
Is there fish on it?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's a fish, all right.
I know. I know.
Holy macaroni!
Look what you caught that
I
time.
thought it was a log.
You thought it was a rock.
I thought it was a log.
That's a fine looking log you got there, buddy.
It was fighting so hard, I thought it was a log.
Okay.
He's on there. He's on there. He's on there.
You got a log? He's on there.
He's on there.
Oh, good. Easy. Easy.
I want to see him.
Be easy. Bring him on in here.
Like if the boat keeps going, we're gonna hit something. Fish on.
Fish on?
Just bring the whole thing.
There you
Two
go.
and
Bring it on.
one, let's
There
go.
you go. Just bring the whole thing.
We keep catching 2 and 1s.